Welcome to the build guide for the AI006 Stomp box adapter. First step is to snap the PCBs apart and then use a tool. I use wire strippers to break off the tabs that connect the PCBs together. Because the circuit is meant for a 2 HP panel, we don't really have a lot of width to spare, so we want to make sure that everything is inside the PCB and not sticking outside. Then we move on to the 10 ohm resistors. There's an error on one side of the PCB where the silkscreen reads 100K. It is 10 ohm. Just follow the build guide. Because it is a 2 HP circuit, a lot of the resistors are standing. I hate standing resistors. I hate having to put them in my circuit. But that's what we want to do if we want through hole in 2 HP. I probably need to apologize for how slow I'm going on this video. I was using a very fine tip because I'd been doing some SMD work. I should have swapped it out. Using a more normal size tip would have gotten everything to flow a little quicker. And I am also watching a Trailblazers game, watching the Trailblazers beat the Warriors while I build this, which is bad. But what can you do? Go Blazers. Now we'll go to the single 10K resistor. It is lying flat, so you could do it first if you want to. I just like to start with the 10 ohm resistors all the time. Now we'll move on to the two 1K resistors. These are on the front panel PCB. And now we'll do the single 22K resistor. And now the 150K resistor. Now we'll move on to the penultimate resistor, the 470 ohm resistor. And finally, we'll do the 1M resistor, and then we're all done with those guys. Now that we're done with the resistors, we're going to move to the power header. We're going to do this part now because it's going to add some stability to the other parts we're building. And the reason that some of the resistors are on the front and back, well, really just the R2 is on the other side, is to make sure that there's ample space for fitting the ribbon cable on the 2.5 pin connector. So you just turned it over and just solder the pins. Gravity will make sure it's nice and flat. Now we'll do the 4.1 UF capacitors. These are just for power filtering. Now we'll move to the 10 PF capacitor. There is a weird continuity thing going on. Somehow in the original record, I missed this step, so I had to go back to a different PCB and add these next two capacitors. That's why it looks a little different. But this is the 10 PF capacitor. And then we'll do the 47 PF capacitor. Now we're doing the 8-pin socket. I've already placed it in this video. The only thing is to make sure that the indentation on the socket matches the silk screen, which is what we might call up, pointed up in this case. And then I like to take a screwdriver usually to bend the pins down. That's also missing from this video due to the continuity mess up. And then you solder it in. Now we'll go ahead and insert the TL071 IC chip into the socket. We're just going to make sure that the dot in the that signifies pin 1 of the IC is in the upper left. Now we'll move on to the 4 10UF capacitors. These are polarized. There's a white stripe on one side that signifies the negative end that also has the shorter leg. And you want to make sure that those are aligned with the plus minus signs that are on the PCB. Now we'll do the 3-pin male and female headers. I usually like to put these in while the boards are connected. That just confirms that they fit and that they're in the right spot. And since these boards are flat, it also ensures that they're straight. It does take a little bit longer to solder that way, but very minimally, just because there's more metal that gets heated in the process. But it's well worth it for nice flat headers. Now we'll put in the 4 jacks. These are just audio jacks, unless you, I guess, want to send control voltage through a pedal. The way I like to do this is I'm going to use a little, in this case, a candle holder, but you can use that or a cup or anything. That just makes it lie flat, but still gives access below the PCB for the pins to go through. And then what I'm going to do is just tack down the ground pins of each jack so that they're nice and flat. And then at that point, I'll turn it over and do the rest of the pins. I have 4 of these little candle holders on my bench. One is for jacks, one is for switches, one is for potentiometers, and the other is for hardware. And that's just a place to put things while I'm building them, or if there's an extra one. And I usually also keep the associated socket in that candle holder as well, just so I have quick access when it comes time to tighten a nut around an item. Now that I've tacked on the ground jacks from the top side, I'm going to go and get the other lugs on the bottom side, as well as reflow, if necessary, around the ground lugs. Now we're at the final step. This one can be tricky. These are the 2 A100K potentiometers, and again, I'm going to use my cup here. The only reason that this is tricky is because we're using the 2HP circuit, we don't have space for the knob that would normally go on a metal alpha pot. So the spacing, or rather the alignment of the potentiometer is really crucial. If you have it tilted to any side, it's going to hit the metal. So you want to test fit the knobs before you solder them down. And once you're happy with the placement, I use the wire strippers to then squeeze the lug down in the back. And I'm always checking the torque to make sure that I'm getting a good range of movement with that potentiometer. before I solder it down. Once I've clamped down the two lugs and I know they're good, at that point, I'm going to go ahead and solder them in. There is one side, at least one side on the PCB for putting a spot of solder on the leg that you've clamped down. Go ahead and do that one just to keep it there. Otherwise, it should be enough just to solder in the pins. And now you're good to connect the two boards together, do the continuity test, and then go ahead and apply power and test the circuit. Thanks for watching.